I was fixing a small wooden boat when my phone rang. My hands were covered in sawdust. I had built that boat 40 years ago. I was still fixing the same broken piece, the same way I had a dozen times before. My daughter's voice came through fast. "Dad, don't come to the cottage this weekend." I laughed. "I wasn't planning to. Why?" She paused. That pause felt wrong. "We have guests coming." "What guests?" "Airbnb guests." I didn't speak for a second. I thought I heard her wrong. "My cottage?" "Well," she said, "ours, kind of." Then she hung up. I sat there holding that little boat. For the first time, I asked myself something scary. Did my own daughter still think of that house as mine? But to understand why that phone call scared me so much, you need to know what that house actually meant. My name is Thomas Walker, 69 years old, a carpenter my whole life. That cottage wasn't just a building. It was a promise. My wife Lily loved the ocean more than anything. Every anniversary, we sat on the same bench by the coast and watched the waves. One rainy night, she said, "Promise me one day we'll wake up hearing waves." I promised her. But I never got the chance to keep that promise while she was alive. She got sick fast. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. I didn't touch a tool for 3 years after that. Then one morning, I knew what I had to do. I built her that cottage myself. She used to stand in the empty frame of the kitchen and say, "The window needs to face the water so I can watch it while I cook." So I moved the whole wall to give her that view. A kitchen table where she later taught Emily to bake bread. Marks on a bedroom wall where the grandkids grew an inch every summer. A tree planted on her birthday. A bench I built the week I scattered her ashes. So when Emily said ours, it wasn't just a word. It was something I didn't understand yet. For years, that cottage was full of exactly what Lily had dreamed of. Emily made pancakes every Saturday morning, using Lily's handwritten recipe card, flour dust on her hands just like her mother used to have. Michael taught the grandchildren to fish off the dock, patient in a way that reminded me of myself, 30 years younger. One afternoon, my grandson's kite tore in the wind. He cried until I sat with him on the porch and stitched the fabric, back together with fishing line. He still keeps that kite in his room. At night, we lit bonfires on the sand, and someone always told a story about Lily. The way she danced barefoot in the kitchen, the way she never once beat me at cards, and never once let me forget it. "You built something amazing, Dad," Emily told me once, watching her kids chase each other through the surf. Mom would be so proud. I believed her completely. Then she married Ryan, and for a long time that felt like nothing but good news. Ryan showed up the week a storm tore part of the roof off, and he paid for the repair himself before I could even call someone. He organized family barbecues. He fixed the porch step before I noticed it was loose. "You deserve to relax now, Thomas," he told me once, handing me a beer while he grilled. "Let me handle the rest." I liked him, genuinely. Everyone did. I had no reason yet to think differently. That reason would take a long time to arrive, one small piece at a time. Then the small things started, quiet enough that none of them felt worth mentioning on their own. Ryan replaced my old porch swing with a new one, sleeker, no creak left in it. "The old one wasn't safe," he said. I missed that creak more than I expected to. He bought matching beach towels, folded in a neat stack, labeled with a little tag. "For the guests," he said when I asked. I didn't ask what guests. He asked me gently not to leave my fishing gear out on the porch anymore. "It just looks a bit messy for photos," he said. Lily's old coffee mugs, chipped and mismatched, disappeared from the cupboard. New white ones took their place. "They didn't really match the kitchen," Emily told me. He started calling it our place when he spoke to his friends on the phone. I heard it more than once through the screen door, and Emily's voice started to change too. She used to say, "I think we should." Now it was, "Ryan thinks it's better if." Every time, like she was checking with him before she let herself have an opinion. Still, I trusted them both. Which made what came later so much harder to see coming. Ryan installed a keypad lock on the front door. I asked him about it, half joking, wondering if I'd end up locked out of my own house. He laughed and put a hand on my shoulder. "Dad, relax. You'll always have your own code. Same 4 digits as always. Nothing's changed for you." I felt foolish for even asking. I let it go completely. That relief didn't last nearly as long as I thought it would. Weeks later, my code stopped working. I stood on my own porch trying the same 4 numbers 3 times before telling myself I must have mistyped it. I didn't want to believe anything else. Emily started asking me to text before I visited. "The kids have a routine now, Dad." That stung, but I told myself it was simpler this way, and the signs outside that house were getting harder to explain away too. Neighbor mentioned, smiling, "We almost booked your cottage for my sister's visit." Booked. That word didn't sit right. One evening, nerves getting the better of me, I searched Airbnb myself, typing in our little town's name. Nothing came up. No listing, no cottage. Relief washed over me. I told myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Let paranoia get the better of an old man's mind. I was wrong to feel that relief. I just hadn't looked in the right place yet. I mentioned the empty search to Michael, almost ready to laugh it off. He tried something different, searching under the name of the next town over, the one our mail technically got routed through. There. It was. Photos of the porch, the kitchen, the bedroom with the height marks still faintly visible on the wall. And then I saw it, folded over the back of the guest bed in one photo. Lily's quilt. The one she'd sewn by hand the winter before she got sick, patches from old dresses and worn-out curtains. Seeing that quilt laid out for strangers hurt more than any number on a page ever could. And once we found the listing, everything about that keypad code made a different kind of sense. Professional photos, hundreds of reviews. Live for almost 2 years. Ryan called himself a super host, estimated earnings. Over £80,000 a year. I thought about that keypad. "Same 4 digits as always," he'd said. He never mentioned that the system logged every time that code was used, and that the notification went straight to his phone, not mine. But money wasn't even the worst part of what Michael told me next. "There's more," he said. Ryan told me, "Dad won't understand." I refused to stay quiet, so he cut me out. Emily started pulling away from me too. This was never only about money. Ryan had been quietly isolating anyone who asked questions, so I decided to confirm all of it myself without warning anyone. I drove out unannounced. A family was unloading suitcases. A little girl waved. "Are you fixing the porch?" "No," I said. "I own this house." I put my key in the lock. It didn't turn. Locked out of the house I built with my own hands. I didn't yell in front of that family. I turned around and drove home in silence. That silence hurt worse than shouting ever could. What? I decided to do next surprised even me. I went to my lawyer. The house was in my name. Every renovation, every dollar Ryan earned, none of it changed a single word on that paper. "No legal action," I told him. "I just want my life back." But selling that house wasn't as simple as signing one form. The estate agent walked through every room with a clipboard, asking questions I didn't have easy answers for. She paused by the kitchen window, the one facing the water, the one Lily had asked me to move the wall for. "This is a beautiful spot," she said. I just nodded. She had no idea what that window had cost me to build. I said private viewings only. I didn't want strangers wandering through Lily's kitchen for a weekend showcase. The first couple wanted to gut the hole downstairs. The second, an investor, offered above asking price, already talking about turning it into a set of luxury coastal rentals, 3 units instead of 1 house. I said no before he finished his sentence. Then a young couple walked through, expecting their first baby. The wife touched the porch railing. the one I'd sanded smooth years ago, and said, "We've always dreamed of raising kids by the sea." I watched them stand in the kitchen where Lily taught Emily to bake, and for a moment, they looked like Lily and me 40 years earlier. I told the estate agent that afternoon, no more viewings. This was the family. Ryan had no idea any of this was already happening. Papers were signed within 2 weeks. Closing day arrived. Ryan showed up expecting new guests. Instead, he found a moving truck and a family carrying boxes through a door he no longer had a key to. He laughed. Then he understood. My phone rang an hour later. Emily crying. "You sold it? What about our bookings? They were never yours to give away." But the conversation that actually mattered came a few days later. Emily came alone. No Ryan. She sat at my kitchen table for a long moment without speaking. Her eyes landed on the little wooden boat sitting half-repaired on the windowsill. "Helped you paint that thing when I was 9, she said quietly. "Do you remember? I got yellow paint all over Mom's tablecloth." I remembered. I hadn't expected her to. She looked down at her hands. "I don't know when I stopped seeing you as the owner," she finally said. "Ryan always said, 'You'll inherit it.' Eventually, anyway." He said it so many times, I stopped noticing the day I stopped asking permission. That's the part that scares me now. I said the only thing that mattered back. "You weren't waiting for me to die. You were waiting for me to step aside." She broke down completely. I let her. Some things need to be felt all the way through before they can heal. Then Michael gave me something that changed the whole shape of the story again. An old notebook. Lily's original drawings of the cottage sketched before I built a single wall. A small heart drawn next to the kitchen window she'd asked for. Michael had saved it from a box Ryan planned to throw away. Kept it safe for 2 years. He hadn't protected the building. He'd protected the one thing that actually mattered. I bought a small house further up the coast. Michael visits often. Emily is slowly rebuilding trust. Not with one big apology, but small, steady effort, month after month. Last weekend, my grandchildren built a sandcastle by the water. "Granddad, do you miss the old cottage?" I smiled. "I miss the memories, not the walls." That evening, I finally finished fixing the little wooden boat. I set it on the windowsill of my new home, facing the water. Lily once asked me to promise we'd wake up hearing waves one day. I kept that promise, just not in the way either of us ever imagined. Some things are worth fixing. Some things teach you when it's time to build somewhere new. A house becomes a home because of the love put into it. But the moment people care more about the building than the person who built it, they've already lost what made it special. The greatest thing you can leave your family isn't a house. It's teaching them that gratitude comes before what they think. They're owed. If someone in your family ever made you feel like a guest in your own home, tell me about it below. I want to hear how you handled it.